Right?
What does day in my life look like?
But
Wake
definitely
up
not my type.
usually
You
between
know?
6 and 6:30. No, no alarm. I do
Like,
think it's very important to wake up without an alarm.
I would
Waking up with an
really
alarm is
be
like
rude
the
with this
biological
guy
definition of like
somehow.
hurting
I
yourself.
just
Like
know.
you're wanting to sleep and then
I
like
don't like
you
alarms
force
either,
yourself
though,
to be awake.
Kyle.
So I think it's very important to wake up without
Yeah.
an alarm. Obviously, if there's
Yeah.
like an airplane or something to catch, then that's a
Yeah.
different story. But
Yeah.
I'd say
Totally.
I wake up to an alarm 2 or 3 days per year.
Good
Just
times.
very very infrequently.
Yep.
But I tend to wake up between 6 and 6:30. First thing I do is I check my phone for any crises or emergencies, and then do my morning kind of quick reading. That's usually between 15 and 30 minutes. Then I jump on my bike. I'm a cyclist. I do primarily indoor cycling. On the weekends, I'll do longer outdoor rides, but mostly indoor cycling. I use a Wahoo Kicker. You know what that is? Great bike. Then shower, get started with my day, work kind of all day. We'll usually do lift in the afternoon, and then have dinner and kind of wind down after dinner. But my day is pretty efficient, pretty packed. Very fortunate to have very little downtime. Can work with my team and support staff to make sure that I can be efficient. I'd say on a normal day, I spend between 3 and 4 hours reading.
Nice. I'm really disappointed that you don't wake up at 4:45 because that's an essential part of the Sigma grind to start.
Yeah, no, I understand why certain people think that way. I understand why people who wake up at 4:45 tend to be very efficient. Just I biologically like don't get up at that hour.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I don't really see that much utility in waking up at an ungodly hour because I find that I tried it once upon a time, but I found that my performance was severely dwindled because I wasn't sleeping enough and my brain just wasn't operating at 100% capacity. But it's impressive that you're able to wake up without an alarm because I feel like that truly is a demonstration of an internal motif of excellence because if your circadian rhythm is synced up to the point where you're able to just wake yourself up and pull yourself into like existence without the help of anything else, that's getting a little bit philosophical here, but that's an impressive ability.
I don't think so. I think it's just being on a routine. I think it mostly speaks to how boring my life is.
Incredible. Okay, so where are you based in these days? You're in Austin, Texas.
I'm normally in Austin. I'm in Park City, Utah right now.
Park City, Utah. And how do you like it?
Love it. I love the snow. I love the mountains. There's something about the air and nature. You can see there's a giant pile of snow behind me outside.
I love that. Speaking of geographical location, this is something that I think about a lot too. I'm currently based in New York City, lots of crypto presence in SF, in Miami, kind of all over the world, really. Like you have really strong developer communities in emerging markets like Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, and then you have a lot of investors in Singapore. Where do you think the crypto center of the world is going to be in the
Metaslavia.
upcoming 5 years to 10 years?
Metaslavia.
I don't think there's going to be a center. I mean, New York is probably the largest hub today. From what I can gather anecdotally, it was SF pre-COVID. I think it's New York now. But like, I think it's more like just have lots of regional hubs. What does that mean for builders? I think that's probably net good, and that it's let them prioritize parts of their life.
Yeah, this guy.
Be in San Francisco or be in New York.
He's
obviously
thinking too much of himself.
And so they're clearly prioritizing those more than they were previously, which is probably good for their.
Yeah, because also finance and management degrees.
I think the group is probably bad for is investors. Because it means you're going to
be okay in associate.
Which is logistically kind of impossible at a certain point.
I remember Multicoin.
And so I think what that means is, the best investment firms are going to need to have people all over because like you just can't cover Europe and Asia and Australia and North America and LATAM. I mean, just one person will go crazy. So not to say we have that coverage, but we certainly are trying to be as geographically dispersed as we can be.
Yeah, I think especially in an industry like crypto where even our team is so decentralized. Like right now it's what,
Ooh, I already
almost
followed
9 p.m.
him
in the
before.
evening. This is where usually like the second half of our day
Impossibility.
starts, when the Shanghai team wakes up and the US team kind of has to hop on calls with, you know, partners and team members in Asia. So yeah, decentralization in every aspect is important. Speaking of, what do you
so
think
easy to reach you,
the
Kyle. I wish it was so
fundamental
easy
difference
to
between being
reach
an
the Greek
investor
guy.
and an entrepreneur is? Because you have experience in both founding companies and running
Hey.
them, as well as, you know, running a fund and investing. And throughout the panels today,
You
we
are
actually
so
have a lot of guests
reachable.
coming
It's
on
kind
from
of
different projects
alarming,
that are
Kyle.
hosted by guests from different investment funds.
Actually.
So yeah, what do you think the main difference in thinking there is, or the main difference in lifestyle is?
I think the main difference is like, do you take pride, or I should say, do you derive satisfaction from like building and shipping, or do you derive satisfaction from learning and thinking?
Learning and thinking, please.
My sense is most people in the world derive more satisfaction from building and doing than from thinking. And
Not me.
and I think that's like the core of it. And I think it takes a while to learn which of those appeals to you. I can tell you, for me personally, like I could read 12 hours. Like if I didn't need to take any meetings, either internal or external, I could read 12 hours a day, every day for the rest of my life.
Me too.
So that maps pretty well to investor.
Okay, book racks. For 2023, what are the top 3 books that everybody should read?
I generally don't recommend books.
Interesting.
I think they take too long to read, and I think most people don't. Depending on where you are in your life and your career, like that, committing that amount of time is hard on a generic recommendation. The only exception I'll make to that is stuff around personal health. I can tell you the most important book I have read in my life is a book called Why We Sleep by a gentleman named Matthew Walker.
I like to sleep too, Kyle.
Maybe 4 years ago or something, 4 or 5 years
we
ago.
would vibe.
And it scared me into sleeping better. I did not appreciate the importance of sleep for my everything functioning, and I much more appreciate it now than I did. And I think that was, like the single most important thing I've done in my life was committing to better sleep.
Okay. I'm super happy for you. I feel like sleep is something that we struggle with because our team is so decentralized and we're always like taking meetings deep into the night. But maybe perhaps you could hit up Wilson after this call and tell him to cut us some slack.
Right.
Chapter
He's like,
1.
work harder, this guy. Oof.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, this interview has taken another direction than I thought it was going to be. I was so nervous about it because I had written like a whole script of really long questions and I'm like, oh my God.
We were a bunch of stuff and we went, totally different, which honestly is fun for me.
I'm so glad. Speaking of fun, what do you do for fun these days? I feel like I've never seen an interview in crypto in which like the person is kind of getting put on blast instead of some sort of really intense academic topic. So let's go all in. What are things you do for fun other than I guess going to the mountains where there's snow?
I mean obviously there's snowboarding here. So that's probably, snowboarding is my favorite activity.
Wow, doesn't tweet
in the world. So try and do a lot of that.
What a joy.
My kind of primary summertime activity is cycling. I do a lot of outdoor bike cycling.
Amazing.
I'm actually getting ready for a 150-mile bike race that I'll do at the end of April, over the course of 2 days. So I'm training for that right now as well.
Incredible. That takes a lot of resilience. I can never understand people who do stuff like Ironman or marathons. It just sounds like
there is just one thing.
But I think, especially in the past like half a year, I really got deep into like reading philosophy.
It's not about you, my love. It's about the person who you're talking with.
I mentioned the Sigma Grind Starter Pack. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
She's flirting with him. She's totally like flirting with this guy. And she wasn't even flirting with my other 2 preference guys.
Sigma male or a Sigma person. One who is very much
completely
a local, who is outside
doing
the
something
boundaries
else.
of society, who has an internal motif of excellence and who strives toward the excelsior because for them, so everything kind of to the self. They don't really look to societal standards. They're more about like accomplishing things for themselves and themselves only. And I think one of the most Sigma things you could do is putting yourself through immense pain. in order to get to something that you can be proud of, or in order to like better yourself and take yourself to the next level of life. So I respect you a lot for that. My roommate did marathons in New York City while I was just sitting on the couch, like reading about crypto. So perhaps I should stop doing that and do more active things that are painful.
We went
Well, honestly, I don't know. I
went
think I
to
made a better decision. I think
New
reading
York
about
school at the
crypto
same
is cool.
time.
But I don't know. Let's not
He's
pat
literally
myself
my
on the back
age.
until I finish the race. So I need to get through it.
Our internal team group chat is blowing up right now as I'm hosting this interview because everybody is like, oh my God, I need to get into biking. And then everybody's like, oh my God, I need to go to Utah. So yeah, maybe you should start a lifestyle brand, Kyle, to kind of give people guidance on how to become Kyle Solani.
I don't think the world would be better off if that was the case. But
Okay,
I
he's
am
cute.
flattered and appreciate the thought.
Fine.
If you could start one company now, without, considering the time.
I would
and
close
bandwidth
all
that
the
it would
companies,
take, what would
guys.
you
Like,
start?
please don't start new companies. Just stop it.
Something I've always thought about, although I don't think I'm qualified to do. I haven't thought through all of the competitive elements of something that intellectually appeals to me, is to try and devise salary tracking for consumption. Obviously, there's like a bunch of wearables for energy expenditure with varying degrees of accuracy. But I think the more difficult part is tracking caloric input. And if you could figure out a way to do that accurately and passively,
You really don't have to do
I
it,
think
my
that would
love.
be a very
You
large
can
breakthrough for
just
human health.
eat how much you feel like.
I do agree.
be good.
There are apps out there where they
You don't need
kind of tell
technology
you
for that.
like how many
Be
calories are in
very
your food,
present
like
with
the
your
app that comes
body.
with,
Honestly, like your greatest technology is right here, your body. You don't need to track anything. Just be nice to yourself. Be kind.
calories that you're consuming and always being mindful and aware of exactly what you're doing to yourself. Sometimes I feel like too much clarity and knowledge is such a burden,
Whoa.
It's like
Ignorance is bliss.
truly. And especially for someone with like so much knowledge absorbed from so much reading, like do you ever find it painful to know so much? Have you
Oh
ever
my
at
fucking
any
God, such a
point
bad
been like, you know
question,
what, I
my
kind of
love.
just want to stop this, I don't want to do multi-point anymore, I'm just going to move to the mountains and not be a part of society?
No, I can't say that's ever occurred to me. I love what I do too much. I think I need stress. I need engagement.
I can
So
give you some
my
stress if
job
you'd
provides
like.
plenty of that.
Amazing. It does indeed. Speaking of stress and engagement, I think it segues perfectly into our last question, unfortunately, for this lovely interview. So, kind of elephant in the room, 2022 was a year of multiple black swans that shared a common denominator of lack of transparency and investor protection in our industry. And you once said in an episode with Jason Kalafnis that it comes down to the question of how to balance the cost of introducing protections on all the good actors against the dead weight loss of theft and fraud from bad actors, while increasing overall economic output for the economy over an indefinite time horizon. By the way, I'm just paraphrasing what you said in that interview, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he talks like he writes. It's such long sentences, but everything is like dense and concise. So you said that you're generally a believer in maximizing economic productivity, growth, and value created. So where do you stand now? How do you balance that growth with trust and transparency, which is, evidently very important? And could Jason's
Good
proposal of
times.
dividing
Wow,
AUM
what
into
good
tranches
vibes.
and applying different compliance structures to the higher tranches work?
So I think the first part of the question was, have my views changed in terms of like overall rich preferences
Oh, his
for
website.
maximizing economic growth versus investor
I
protection?
love him.
And the one-word answer to that question is no.
Oh, wow.
It's unfortunate what happened. I'm sorry for all the people, the families. A lot of money was lost. I feel shitty that I was at least affiliated with it in terms of obviously we were allowed a public investor in FTX. And I feel some sense of shame and guilt.
I'm just gonna enter.
having
I'm just gonna put that network state everywhere,
Sam and-
every single freaking.
But
Even the
I
packing
can't-
notes. In here.
I can't believe that if you reduce the overall growth rate of the economy by whatever 10 bips or whatever on the margin, compounded over a very long period of time, that outweighs any acute losses. So my view remains unchanged, although I do realize it is unfortunate, and I also realize it is sounds what's the word? It shows lack of empathy, and I don't mean to come across that way. It's just I want to believe in maximizing wealth for as many people as possible.
Yeah. No,
Go for it.
no, finish what you were gonna say.
Second part of your question was, I think Jason in a podcast I did with him proposed like tiering risk or something. I don't recall the exact proposal he put there forth.
We love the Zorazine, don't we?
I'm generally, I think the probability of a carte blanche free market
Perhaps I can
system
sign up for
here is
another email before.
0%. Not going to happen. And so I am very supportive of reforms that get us closer to that than what we currently have, which I find to be quite backwards. So I'm supportive of reform. I have not spent any meaningful amount of energy trying to reason about all of the various ways you could construct different risk profiles or risk tranches and how you divvy that up and create access for different people. So I don't have a particular view or a particular manifestation of that.
Gotcha. I can empathize with the belief that what we're aiming for here is maximal growth, maximal, value created. But at the same time, like even under that guiding North Star, I think there are specific action steps that people should be taking to ensure that the execution of that belief is also, ethical and has integrity. I think going forward in 2023, like a lot of people on the panels today were also talking about how to build sustainable futures with decentralized technology, which is also, I think, one of the reasons that a lot of people like me joined the industry for promise of a better future, for bright-eyed, bushy-tailed mission statements like, returning the power to the people and things of that sort. And I think, especially given, the influence that you have in the industry, I would love to see you perhaps dedicate more energy and thought into how something like that could be executed. I would be very interested in seeing if you do decide to do some research on how to create a system in which we can prioritize growth, but while protecting the people who would be affected by that growth. Thank you so much for your time. We're 1 minute past the mark, but this has been a very enjoyable conversation. Our company is very appreciative of all the work that you've done with us and all the help you've given us along the way. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Wendy, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure, and congrats to everything for CyberConnect last year and onwards and upwards in 2023.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good new year.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so that was the finale of the CyberConnect 2023 Summit.
Good times, thanks guys.
I have no idea how many people are still watching at this point, but that was quite glorious. A sincere thank you to all of our investors and partners
going on
and
for
friends,
8 hours doing
community
this
members
is
for
quite
being online with us
wow.
throughout all this time. And before I give you guys a little closing speech, I do have to make an announcement to our dear CyberConnect community about the mystery boxes, which I'm sure a lot of you have been.
Not interested. My loves, I realize how much I miss New York City. Yes, I do. I feel like I am missing out on my life there. I'm gonna reach out to every single friend of mine there to feel the gap in connection. Playful paradigm shift. I kind of want to just grab the kitty. Coinbase blog, by the way, just so you know. Oh, what article. 2016. Okay, so Seed Club podcast. Hmm? Nice, beautiful design, very well done. You know, yo, like guys, please learn. Dynamic people, dynamic. You can tell there's intelligence here. There's drive. There's passion. It just obvious. Like you don't need to listen to really feel the vibe. This passion is there. But I do wanna see where's the play button here. Play. No. Okay. Spotify it is.
How are you actually making some kind of positive change that you want to see in the world? And then defining positive change, well, like lots of people will define that very differently. And in our case, what we've tried to say is that there isn't one right answer to that question, as long as you have a very clearly defined sort of objective, and as long as it ends up creating positive externalities in the world around you.
Hello friends, Jess here from Seed Club. Welcome to Season 3 of Building at the Edges. We host conversations with the top innovators, thinkers, and builders at the intersection of crypto and community. I'm very excited to bring you this conversation with Scott Orr from Gitcoin DAO. Scott is a longtime builder in crypto, was a co-founder of Gitcoin, and is deep in the operations of Gitcoin right now. I thought it would be valuable to have his point of view here. We spent a bunch of time talking about the market cycles, Scott having built through the last bear market and into the bull, and the lessons we can have from that. And I think the most interesting parts of this conversation are just to speak with somebody who's been in the market at a time like this, built through it, and then also has been a part of launching a DAO and managing a DAO, both through the early days and in the excitement of the early days, and then also through the necessary sort of shifts and changes that come with a maturing DAO-like organization. So let's get into it. Scott, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me, Jess.
About time, Scott. You're a long-time early supporter of Seed Club. I remember being parked in Stanley Park. I don't know where I was going, but I remember pulling over and having a conversation with you the first time about what we're building at Seed Club and about the things that you were working on at Gitcoin. And I just love having these moments where I get to sort of reflect on that earliest meeting, which seems so long ago. It's probably only 2 years ago, but it was also long ago. But we both come so far, my friend. We survived another bull market, and here we are back into a bear market and all the fun things that come with it. This one maybe has a little bit more oomph behind it in certain ways, and maybe less oomph behind it in other ways. But I'm curious. I think a good place for us to start a conversation is just about the nature of market cycles, the impact, how that sort of affects what we build, why we build, and you as somebody who's been through a few of these, I think has some interesting insights maybe to share here.
Yeah, I feel like, Gitcoin's been through almost 3 market cycles at this point, if you kind of count some of the smaller reductions in sort of like the 2017 era. And I think what's super interesting to me is just how many things change throughout those cycles. To your point, when we talked about Seed Club early on, that was really at the start of what eventually would be like DeFi summer. And then, of course, we saw all of that play out over what feels like it was like a decade, but was actually like probably to your point, like 2 years. I think the accelerated nature of those cycles in Web3 is part of why it's such a fascinating.
I need to come back to New York. I realize now.
Experiments kind of like flourish and blossom, and then unfortunately, and
I have this like big drive to go back to New York.
That I think just naturally were more speculative, like weren't really aiming at the right thing.
It's probably because of this guy.
Also fall away, and I think there's something to be said for trying to
What are we gonna do with you?
leverage those cycles.
How are we
in a
gonna
way
reach
that really
out?
gives
How are we gonna
us
present
time
ourselves?
to reflect, time to think back at what we've done. And I think that sort of reflection is a really healthy process. So for Gitcoin, like we actually started totally
I'm gonna just
separate
reach
from
out.
Quadratic Funding with this idea of let's build the future of work. Let's build sort of the internet of jobs. Let's find ways for people to get paid for working on open source. And that's still very much a core part of our ethos. But what we sort of realized is bounties maybe on their own weren't enough for that. We
What's
needed
the
a
name
way
of the
to actually
conference?
expand the scope and the role of the maintainers of those projects so that they could feel empowered to build what they wanted to see in the world. And I think if we hadn't had this sort of shift in the broader market, and this is true for a lot of projects, you can just see them
Don't
go on
remember.
this illusion of
What Connect?
product market fit
Cyber
for
Connect?
years without really like having to check back
Yeah.
on, whether or not something actually makes
Okay,
sense.
let's go.
So in that sense, I think it's a challenging time to be in any kind of like bear market for a lot of builders, including for us. We've got like our own work to do there as the DAO, but I do think there's a lot of value in going back to sort of first principles, going back to reflection on not just like what we've already accomplished, but also why we're doing that in the first place.
Yeah, so I think like the illusion of product market fit is something that I think is a thing that any builder has to battle against. Like our default is to want to imagine that it will exist and to be optimistic about things. And I think in the Web2 world, you're really seeing a lot of deep analytics and data being used to kind of drive it, or you're looking at ARR or some sort of metric that seems to be established as the industry. I think what we get here is like it's very easy to have false positives when you have these very speculative assets that are kind of the core product that's out there. If your token price is going up and people are excited about it, you're successful. If it's going down, you're not. And really, there's sort of a lack of focus on what there is that people are trying to build. And even if you have the best of intentions around it, it can be very easy to get distracted. And maybe there's an argument that being distracted in the short term is actually the game theoretical right thing to do if you're just trying to maximize value. But I think that's actually a
and
tough
also,
argument to make. If you game it all out, I guess the TLDR is easy to get lulled into a sense of acceptance around perceived product market fit. And so I guess my question here is like, how do we bring earlier awareness to those issues? Because maybe you're building right now and you haven't fully recognized what mismatch we have around the product market fit or the need for our product, or maybe we just want to be faster at identifying that in the future.
And I think we actually, to be honest, done a lot better this cycle than in previous cycles in this direction. But, there was a time where there were like no users in Web3. Like the concept of a user was like a pipe dream. I think this cycle, certainly there were more users, but even then, I think we haven't had hard conversations about like what those users are actually looking for and how they're actually interacting with products. And I think actually this cycle we'll see a lot more things that have sort of survived and found at least some base level of that product market fit. But I do think that there's certainly a challenge around just really talking to users and, also figuring out what kind of, to your point about like the issue with broader sort of token economies, like what is the user actually trying to get and how does any kind of token economy facilitate what they're trying to get?
I think I should think deeply about my way of presenting myself on my
I think we saw a lot of that
Twitter.
With the broader conversation around different types of token utility. We certainly saw that with like governance. Even for us, like, we have to figure out what are the things that people want to govern. What are people excited to govern? What are they excited to be part of? And I think we're sort of lucky in a sense where like people kind of like the idea of public goods. They like the idea of building kind of new forms of infrastructure. And it's a community that naturally is already kind of Web3 native. They're developers that are building on these protocols and these ecosystems already. And I think that's actually very useful versus if you're trying to go to like a much broader mainstream audience where they just don't really know what even a wallet is. They don't really know necessarily what they're trying to, necessarily accomplish. They just heard about it on CNBC, and then you get into problems from there. So I think certainly we're doing a little bit better.
Guys,
cycle,
I posted so much reading to catch up.
Really, really, really key.
Yeah, maybe the folks Jim Cramer is referring to us are not the right folks to be governors of decentralized protocols at the stage we're at today.
Yeah.
So I think there's two interesting threads to pull on. I think one maybe we'll get to in the future, which is this idea of value in token economies, because I think that gets into some of the new work that you're doing, and it's definitely a conversation I'm interested in.
God, I
But I think
really
there's a number
communicated
of
on
folks that are
here.
either leading teams, leading DAOs, or are part of DAOs, and we're in this phase of like
The web
reformatting,
of new life.
refactoring, refocusing. It's a
Wow.
material difference in how we need to structure and operate in a time where there
Oh my God.
isn't
I
just this
really
abundance
like
of interest and
lived through
attention,
this.
and really where we need to go create that interest and attention in a much more focused way. And I know in your role at Gitcoin, you sort of have a front row seat to both the benefits
Look how many
and the
views I got for
challenges
this
of
video.
leading through that
You know,
shift in a very public way. Governance from
Claire
Gitcoin
is
is
still winning.
on chain and very public in many ways. So I'm curious, what have some of like the conversations been like, or how have you
Good
approached
times.
making the changes that are needed, either from a focus or even a resourcing standpoint for Gitcoin?
All right,
I
let's
mean,
see
that's
if
been
we're
actually a
lucky.
big part of our shift in a lot of ways. So we started again with this sort of the notion of bounties and individual tasks, and we sort of evolved that to focus on getting maintainers money they needed to continue working on their core product, their core idea, their core piece of infrastructure. A lot of that was a lucky shift because
Yeah, I'm
the
not
original
surprised.
model
Solana
for grants
Foundation
really had
stuff
nothing
is
to
just
do
getting hacked and
with
hacked and
quadratic
hacked and
funding.
hacked
And
because you're trying to
Vitalik and
protect
Gwen
yourself
and
so
Zoe,
much. You
like,
just can't, you just can't. You just have to protect yourself, Solana, because you're just so like whatever, Nobody gives a fuck, and then everyone's gonna be continuing to fuck you up, Yeah, no, it's not the vibe. Every time I'm in like Solana mode, I'm like, ooh, bitchy environment. Generally, like how much bitchiness it is in Web3. Let's talk about that. I'm only reflecting. That's all I'm doing. This is kind of cute. What is this? That's good. Out of context. We aim to. Good times. Yo, my loves, I need to be in New York. People get me in New York. You fuckers in Europe don't even get me fully. Just can't. Yeah, I'll have to reread all of my posts and then maybe potentially open up my account again. All right, I'm tired. You can see by my tone of voice. I'm tired. I need to get to my bath and meditate on my new Greek obsession. Ready? I think so. Дзен, Кайдзен Club. Управлять можно только энергией, потому что сама жизнь — это энергия, наша жизнь — это не время, наша жизнь — это энергия. Мы умираем не только, когда наше время заканчивается, мы умираем, когда наша энергия заканчивается. Управлять нужно не временем, а энергией. Управлять энергией можно через 3 инструмента. Первое — это восстановить утечку энергии. Второе — это эффективно использовать энергию, которую мы уже умеем. Третье — правильно и эффективно выполнять энергию. Класс, все, пойду восполнять энергию, ребяточки мои хорошие. Я вас очень сильно люблю, вы знаете это. Вы просто очень крутые люди, я обожаю. Если вы реально смотрите, if you're really watching this until now, and you're really like somehow mesmerized by the work that I do, that means they're getting it. So go reach out, say what you think and what you feel with connecting with my content, and I will respond to you, because I respond to people. That's what I do. I respond. Yeah, let me just prepare some things for our other time. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Love you so much.